So this man here made a chilling statement saying that in his movies, everybody dies. Let's go ahead and dive into today's true crime stories. And as a warning, viewer discretion is advised. On the evening of September 19th, 2019, Valerie Kessler, who was hanging out in front of a grocery store in Anchorage, Alaska, was approached by a man with a foreign accent driving a black Ford Ranger. The man went ahead and pulled up right next to her and asked her if she wanted to go for a ride. Now, Valerie, she was homeless and also had an addiction problem, and she was also a lady of the night, and so she figured this would be some easy money and decided to hop in the vehicle with him. Now, once she got into the truck, they would go ahead and go for an hour-long cruise through the city streets until he decided to pull over to a gas station and go to an ATM to withdraw some money. Because I'm guessing at that car ride that they came up with a price on how much he was going to pay. So while the man was inside the gas station, Valerie would go ahead and search his vehicle, where in his center console she found a cell phone, which she quickly pocketed before he got back to his vehicle. So once the man returned back to the vehicle, they would go ahead and drive off for some adult time. So later that night, Valerie would go back to her tent, and because she's homeless, she did stay in the tent. And she would go ahead and go to the contents of the phone, try to figure out what all was on it before she went ahead and sold it. Now, in the court document, it was stated that Valerie has said that she's been drinking and doing some party favors for the past 2 weeks. And upon going through that phone, she became sober within less than 5 minutes because she had discovered graphic photos and videos of women without clothes on being beaten and strangled. Because one thing she did notice that in the background of all the pictures and videos, looked like a hotel room that looked very familiar to her. So what Valerie would end up doing is she would take a memory card and go ahead and download all the contents onto that memory card. But then later on, she would admit that she actually stole that memory card. Now, once she downloaded all the content onto the memory card, she would go ahead and label it as homicide in Midtown Marriott. But the craziest thing about it is that she would wait 10 days before handing the data over to the police department. And upon handing over the data, police would go ahead and launch an investigation that led to the arrest of a man who was under suspicion of unaliving 2 Alaskan Native women. Now, the detectives would look over the footage over and over again, where they noticed that the man would boast and taunt his victims by saying that in his movies, everyone dies. What are my followers going to think of you? People need to know when they are being serial killed. But one thing they did notice was that he never revealed himself on camera. However, one of the detectives on the case instantly recognized the distinct accent of the person, as well as recognized the vehicle that Valerie had said the guy was driving. Because the person he was thinking about was a suspect in a previous case, but was never charged. And that person was South African native Brian Smith, who recently became a U.S. citizen. So with all that information in hand, they would go ahead and arrest Brian Smith on October 8th, 2019 at the Anchorage airport when he was returning back from vacation from Washington, D.C. Now, during an 8-hour interrogation, Brian would claim that he doesn't remember that night in the video, but would later on admit that during a night of drinking, he found a woman's body in the bed of his truck, who was later identified as 30-year-old Kathleen Joe Henry. Now, after being interrogated for 8 hours, Brian said that he needed to use the bathroom, so they decided to take a short bathroom break, in which a trooper had escorted to the bathroom, and then once he was done, they escorted him back to the interrogation room. Now, on their way back to the interrogation room, Brian would make a statement to the trooper by saying that he was going to make them famous. And upon hearing those words, the trooper got confused and just brushed it off. Now, upon going back to the room, Brian would make a statement to the police by asking them, do they have some more time? Because he wants to talk some more. Because he would go ahead and disclose other murders that he had committed. Brian Smith was a 53-year-old maintenance worker at an Anchorage hotel. He moved to Alaska back in 2014 to marry a woman he met online, which was 73-year-old Stephanie Bishland. Now, on August of 2018, Brian would go ahead and meet 52-year-old Veronica Abuchuk. Now, Veronica, she was raised in a tiny village of St. Michael's, Alaska, before moving to Anchorage, and she was defined as a wonderful woman who had a good heart and not a mean bone in her body. Now, Veronica, like many others, had issues with homelessness and addiction. Now, when Brian had met Veronica, he had knew that about her, and so he had offered her a place to stay, so have some warm food and a warm place to stay. He did that while his wife was away on vacation. Now, upon returning back to his residence, Brian would go ahead and ask Veronica if she would go ahead and take a shower, in which she didn't really feel comfortable doing that, so she kind of refused to do so. Now, upon hearing Veronica refusing his offer to take a shower, he would get extremely upset, where he would go to his garage, grab his .22 pistol, and go back to her and unalive her with one single shot to the head. But the thing was, he did not stop there. Because after unaliving her, he would go ahead and have relationships with her body. But not just that, he also had recorded it and took pictures of the incident and also sent some of the images to a female friend. And when he had his enjoyment, he would go ahead and dismember the body and go ahead and get rid of it. And on April 10th of 2019, Veronica's head would be found by a pair of mushroom pickers on the side of a highway. Now, upon hearing this, police would go ahead and search Brian's home, where they found the gun as well as the thumb drive that he had used to record and take pictures on everything, even though they found out later on that he deleted everything, but they were able to recover all the images and videos that was on there. And they would identify Veronica's remains due to her dental records. Oh, but Brian wasn't done yet, because he would go on to his second victim. Because he would go ahead and tell police that on September 4th of 2019, that was when he met his second victim, 30-year-old Kathleen Jo Henry. Now, Kathleen, she grew up in Eck, Alaska, where she earned her GED and also was known to write poetry. And just like the first victim, she had her stint of being homeless as well too. Now, once again, Brian would use that to his advantage, where he had offered her a place to stay at the hotel that he worked at. Now, once she entered the room, she would go through hours of torture. You can hear Brian in the footage telling her to just take it, you live, you die, you live, you die, where he was alternating between applying pressure to her throat and releasing it. And once he got his fix, he would go ahead and discard her body along the Rainbow Valley Road, which is on Seward Highway, which is south of Anchorage. And upon finding her body, the enemy would report that she had died from asphyxia. Now, after Brian would go ahead and confess to his crimes, the police would go ahead and place him in jail until his trial date. Now, before the trial even started, Brian's lawyer would go ahead and try to exclude the memory card evidence or even the mention of it out of the trial, because they could not establish whether the 39 photos and 12 videos were the originals or duplicates, as well as there was no way to tell if it was tampered with. Brian's lawyer even stated that the prosecutor could not produce a witness to testify that the video had fairly and accurately depicts what happened that night. However, the judge would go ahead and allow Valerie Kessler to testify about her possession of the memory card all until she gave up to the police. Now, Valerie, on the other hand, she was a very shaky witness, all because it took her 10 days to hand over the memory card in the first place. But on top of that, she lied about how she found it. Because in her original story, she had told the police that she had found it on the street, watched it, and then decided to hand it in. But after some severe questioning, she would go ahead and change her story, where she admitted that she stole the memory card from Brian out of his truck while he was getting money out of an ATM machine. And she stated the reason why she lied because she was afraid she was going to be arrested for theft, as well as being paid for adult activities. Now, the prosecutors go ahead and make a statement saying that even though without her testimony, they still had Brian's confession, even though his lawyer argued saying that his confession was done under duress because he was in an interrogation for over 8 hours. But there's also a reason why he confessed to his crimes. Because Brian is what is known as a sadistic offender. I can't say what the actual word is, so just use your imagination. Now, what a sadistic offender is that it's a person that enjoys inflicting unwanted pain on somebody. They tend to approach their victims in a very charming and seductive way, in which the violence that they dish out can be escalated into torture, which can result in the death of the victim. Now, one thing about sadistic offenders is that they resemble serial killers, and where in some instances they can actually morph into one. Now, after a 3-week trial, which was also delayed due to the COVID lockdown, he was found guilty on 14 different crimes, which includes first-degree murder, assault, tampering with evidence, and misconduct of a corpse. And with those charges, he is facing a mandatory 99 years in prison, to which he is scheduled for sentencing in July of 2024. Now, after the trial, the Native Alaskan community was glad that the criminal justice system had got it right, because they frequently get it wrong, because they feel that Native Alaskan women are invisible, but this time they're not. So that concludes our story for today. Do you feel that Native Alaskan women are not treated fairly in our system? Or do you feel that the criminal justice system is turning a blind eye to situations like this? Go ahead and leave a comment down below, and if you like more stories like this, stay tuned.